there, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about video game bugs and glitches and whether or not they should be, or I felt they should be taken into consideration when reviewing games, in particular, new games. So the game Prey just recently came out, and at least one reviewer gave it a low score, citing a what they consider to be a game-breaking bug, which it kind of was, and citing the bug and saying that because of that, it deserves low score. If I remember right, I believe it got a 4 out of 10. And it made me ask the question: is that something, I saw people complaining about that shouldn't be something to lower the score. But that actually raises a very interesting issue, and the issue is: should a glitch be considered when reviewing a game? Because obviously that's not something that was planned. But it is something that the game was shipped with. You know, Prey, for the last maybe month and a half or so, I've been seeing a lot of advertising for it. So it's not like this is just sort of an out of nowhere kind of game. This game, they definitely put some consideration into it. They definitely put some advertising into it. They're trying to sell it as a big game. So the fact of the matter is, when you get it, you're supposed to expect a certain kind of product. You're supposed to expect a certain amount of polish to the game. If this game suddenly came out and it was $5 and it just came out of nowhere, a lot of people would at least expect a playable game, but they won't expect a bad game. They won't expect anything totally game breaking or for the game to glitch out completely and be totally unplayable. So, should any kind of glitch be taken into consideration? My first thought is yes, but it depends on the severity of the bug. If you've got small glitches, a little bit of clipping here and there, little graphic clipping, maybe the audio kind of flickers around every once in a while. I don't think the game should be slammed for that. A lot of the time that stuff can be fixed with software downloads and things like that, DLC and all. So I don't think that stuff should be, a game shouldn't be scrutinized specifically for that stuff. It shouldn't drop a point of rating to take a perfect 10 game and say, yeah, but there was a little bit of graphic clipping, so it gets a 9. I think that would be ridiculous. But when you're talking about severe bugs, when you're talking about faces disappearing in the middle of cutscenes, when you're talking about your character walking and getting stuck halfway into the ground, or you fall and you glitch through the floor, things that start to make the game unplayable or damage the experience that you're supposed to be getting out of it. If when you're involved in a game and the story's really good and the action is intense, and then all of a sudden you clip through the floor, not only should that not have happened, so your gameplay is ruined, but your the experience that you're supposed to be getting, the experience that they were trying to sell you, especially with popular games, that is also ruined, which in a very, very realistic way means that you paid for this game and you're not getting the experience that they were promising you. It's one thing to not get the experience because you just realize, you buy an open world game and they're promising you a big open world and you just don't like open worlds. You realize that you don't like it. That's one thing. That's personal choice. That's an opinion. But we're talking about the ability to actually play the game, the ability to actually enjoy the game in the way that they intended you to. Those kind of glitches need to be taken into consideration when you review a game. You can't give a game a 9 and say, well, if you ignore the glitches and everything that made the 30-hour experience a 35-hour experience because you had to keep resetting the game. If that's going to be your logic, you might as well give all video games perfect 10s, because that logic to me sounds like, well, if you ignore everything that's bad about the game, you'll really like it. That needs to be taken into consideration. This is the product that they sold to you, and it needs to be considered. If you do experience these kinds of glitches, if they are the kinds of things that can be removed later on, I do, however, think that it warrants a review later on down the line. The fact of the matter is, if they do ship it with a big either a game breaking glitch or a bunch of small glitches that weren't supposed to be there that they intend to fix. The bottom line is they did sell you that game with those problems. So that is an issue and it needs to be considered. But later on down the line, whether they release a Platinum Hits version or whether a week later they patch everything, I think it warrants another look at the game then to say, if Mass Effect Andromeda is a good example where there's a lot of issues with the graphics, with the faces and the eyes and stuff like that, and a lot of people felt like that took them out of the game, which I can respect that. I can respect the idea that one of Mass Effect's biggest selling point to me, or one of my favorite aspects of it, was that you get really involved in this world, and you get sucked out of the world when everybody, it's supposed to be realistic and everybody looks like they're made of clay. It does take you out of the world. It's not the experience that you bought, but that's something that can be fixed later. So when it is fixed, maybe the game is good enough that it should warrant a second look. Maybe the game that you bought on day one and the game that exists a month later may be different enough to get a different score. And the day one game and the 1 month game, the day one game is only going to last a little while. For the rest of our lives, that 1 month version is the version that we have now. So it would stink, 5 years later, to be at a convention or a used game store and to see it on the shelf and say, "Oh, I heard that game was terrible because of when it first came out, this and this happened." Yeah, but the game that you're going to pick up and play is not that game. And so to me, that means that it should be reconsidered later on. Out of all of this, I think the biggest thing that needs to be addressed is shipping a game with a major bug in the first place. I have a major a lot of people like to put that on the game itself and say that this game was glitched or this game had a major bug in it and it wasn't supposed to be there, but they're going to patch it later. I think the issue needs to be addressed that people are shipping out these games with these major bugs in them. They're supposed to go through a lot, and I'll accept that every once in a while, if you do something significant and you find a glitch, I'll admit that, maybe the game testers don't see that they're not going to have seen that. That's entirely possible. But if a game glitches out in the middle of a major cutscene, there's no reason that should not have been spotted in testing. Because at the very least, the first thing that should be fully tested is the major play of the game. All the major storyline, all the cutscenes, all the basic mechanics. These are the first things that are supposed to be tested in a game. So if you come across a massive glitch during one of those, that's a problem that should have very, very easily been detected multiple times over. So I think the fact that the game is shipped out that way in the first place needs to be addressed, because that's a problem that we're experiencing nowadays. So in the end, should bugs be taken into consideration when reviewing a game? Yes. Unfortunately, the reality is when you go and you pay your $60 or you go online and you pay your $60 and you download a game, at the very least, you're supposed to be expecting a game that functions. And if the glitch makes the game not function, that needs to be addressed, and the distributors and the producers, everybody who is responsible for the creation of the game, needs to be held accountable for that. And the easiest way to hold them accountable is in the reviews to say, this game could have been great, but there was an issue when it was shipped out. So if people do reviews and people watch reviews because they want to know if they're going to get their $60 worth, $50, $60 worth when they buy that game. And if they buy that game and if for whatever reason it's not worth it, they deserve to know that. And like I said, the easiest way to reflect that is in the scores. It should definitely be noted what the glitch is if the game is playable, but there happens to be this odd glitch if you go and do this completely outrageous thing, it should be noted, but the game shouldn't suffer for that, because if it's at this point, if you experience the glitch, you're going to go out and find the glitch, so you're kind of asking for it. But in the end, it should be considered. The game should be reviewed later if those glitches are fixed later on down the line. But the companies should at least hear reviewers and players saying that this is a problem, and I'm going to second guess my purchases if this sort of thing continues. Thanks, guys, for joining me for another little rant here. Let me know what you think about major game bugs, if you think that they should be part of reviews, or if there should be a separate category for that. It's sad to say that there might have to be a separate category or separate consideration for, we're supposed to not expect bugs and then suddenly come across them. It would be sad if we have to add a review category of, hey, this game didn't have as many bugs as other games. That's pretty good. But how should we fix the problem? How should reviewers address the problem? And what you think about buying a brand new game, knowing that there's a possibility that that it could be glitched, and that it's being sold to you under the idea that we're just gonna fix it later. Let me know what you think about that. Take it easy, guys. Have a good day.